Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're doing an album review for Pusha T, It's Almost Dry. And I'd like to take this opportunity to say a massive thank you to each and every single one of you. My views have gone up, my subscriber rate has gone up, my like rate has gone up. All of my analytics on YouTube are all green and all pointing up, and it's all thanks to you guys. Thank you. But let's keep the good times rolling, so don't forget to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button. You thought you were going to get away with it, weren't you? But no. Please hit the like button, please hit the subscribe button, and please hit the comment section to let me know what you thought of this video and the album itself. But getting straight into it, Pusha T is an artist that I myself thoroughly enjoy and have for the past few years. I was aware of his work on tracks like Runaway with Kanye West and things like Trouble on My Mind that was part of that Project X movie a few years back, but it was actually the diss track on Drake, The Story of Adidon, that really caught my attention and made me realize we have a master lyricist on our hands here.
You mentioned wedding ring like it's a bad thing. Your father walked away at 5, hell of a dad thing.
So I think it goes without saying that I myself have been counting down the days to get my hands on this album and really experience it and find out what it's going to be all about. And I can gladly say that It's Almost Dry did not disappoint. This is a really solid album where I can almost recommend every single song on the album to you. If you're into that kind of music, of course, it is hip hop, it is heavy rap, it is strong language, they do discuss violence and drugs. You kind of need to know your taste before you dive into it. If you do like that kind of thing, if you're like me, if you're a fan of old hip hop heads like B.I.G., Tupac, Nas, Jay-Z, you are going to love this album because it is a real throwback to albums of old. It's quite a short album. I think it's only about, altogether in one listen, it's probably going to take you about 25 minutes to listen to the whole thing. If that, to be honest, it might actually be a bit less. It's probably closer to the 20-minute mark. But for the 20 odd minutes that you do spend with this album, you can't help but feel completely sucked in by it and grabbed at the shoulders and intensely shaken by it. It's quite an inescapable and undeniable experience. I also like that there is a real variety to each of the tracks on this album. No two songs sound the same at all. They might be in the same vein, they might be discussing the same topic, but the beats are different, the flow is different. It's completely its own animal on each track. And despite that massive variation from track to track, I did always feel a straight through line that did connect the dots from each track to the next. It's actually quite masterfully created in that sense because, yes, I do feel that you can take 2 or 3 or 4 songs from this album that you particularly enjoy and put them into other playlists and it would work fine. And at the same time, you could also just listen to this album from start to finish and it still works fine. The tracks are all quite malleable in that sense, and it's actually quite impressive the more I think about it. And continuing my praise for that variation, I feel that several of these tracks could work in totally different situations and still be an enjoyable song. Several tracks on this album do feel like they could be dance floor fillers, especially in a nightclub. Some of these tracks would totally work in the gym if you're trying to get your pump on and you're really trying to dig deep. Some of the harder rap tracks on this album will totally achieve that for you. And as I've been experiencing, because I have been listening to it while driving around, I personally think a lot of these tracks work as driving songs as well. You can just picture it now, can't you? Me driving around listening to Open Air like
Out on the balcony, goats and shit. Just got the word that the coast is clear.
But if I do have any complaints about this album, it's that I feel there is a lack of a narrative and a lack of a story to the album. That's not to say that there isn't a story or any messaging at all. I think there certainly is, but it does get lost in the album and it certainly isn't very deep at all. It seems to just pop up in places. A lot of it, understandably, is about Pusha T's time as a drug dealer. I mean, it's kind of what he does. If I do have a complaint about Pusha T, it is the lack of variation in what his songs generally are about. Generally speaking, it's about drug-related business and his past. And he's always said, well, no one has a go at Martin Scorsese for just making gangster flicks. And as a Martin Scorsese superfan, I do sit there and bite my tongue, but I am thinking, yeah, but Scorsese did make Silence and he did make Taxi Driver. So But that's only a mild complaint because I do also totally get what he's saying. You do need to feel comfortable about what you're writing, and you do feel like you need to understand what you're writing for it to really come to life and really have an impact. It would be wrong of him to write about something that he hasn't experienced and doesn't actually understand. I can even recognize that in the making of this video. I actually asked people whether or not I should do this because it is different to what I normally do. Am I jumping the shark a little bit by making this video? But thankfully people responded, and here we are. For all of that intensity that I felt in the time that I spent with the album, I did feel like I walked away a little bit shortchanged in regard of thought. I didn't find it that thought-provoking. And not every album needs to be, but I would have liked it here. I think Pusha T is a creative artist enough to really do something in that vein. He's such a good wordsmith and such a great musician that I feel like it's screaming out for it a little bit. I really think that's what he needs to do to elevate, to just go to that next level, because I think he is. Here's the greats. I feel like he is just beneath them. And if he could just elevate that in his work, he becomes undeniable. At least for me. I won't go through each and every single track, but I am going to talk about a good 4 or 5 that personally stood out to me for better or for worse. And we have to start with the beginning of the album. The first 3 tracks for me, superb. This is how you open a rap album. Brambleton is the opening track, and it is a really good opener because it plays a fine line of being a really hard-hitting banger and being a nice, slow, melodic tone setter. It doesn't quite kick the door off its hinges, but it does certainly set the tone and let you know what you're getting into. Let the Smokers Shine the Coops. Good Lord. Who made that beat? Because that beat is bad for your health. I dare you to try and listen to that song and not bop your head to the beat. You can't. It's not possible. I'm frankly amazed they managed to finish the track at all, because every time they pressed play, I would have thought they'd be like,
His money is the evil root.
One of the best beats I've heard in a very long time. Track number 3, this is the definitive track of the album for me, and that is Dreaming of the Past. The piano in this song is gorgeously delivered, and it mixes so nicely with some of the synth work as well. The flow matches the beat really smoothly. It's such an easy listen, and yet it's really profound as well. This is that very profundity that I was complaining about earlier that I feel the album lacks. I only really felt it in this one song here. I don't think you need to dig that deeply with it either. I think the title says everything you need to know, Dreaming of the Past, and you can feel that in the song itself. It feels melancholic, it feels nostalgic, it feels like someone looking back on their mistakes, looking back on their life, and having a nostalgia to it. There is an emotional deepness to that, and I did connect with it. And the longer I spent with that song, the more I listened to it, the more lyrics I picked up, the deeper it got. I personally think this is an absolute must listen. If you're not interested in the album, at least check out that song there. I then feel the album slows down a little bit, but not too much. Maybe a little bit too much for my liking personally. Just So You Remember is like a spoken word poetry song. It's very different to everything else on the album, and yet it still strangely works. Just So You Remember absolutely has that intensity that I mentioned, where it does feel like the song is just grabbing hold of you. But after a couple of listens, I do think it loses that intensity and just becomes a fairly odd song that doesn't really belong anywhere except for on this album. This is one of the rare occasions where I don't think this song translates to other playlists. It only belongs here. I thoroughly enjoyed Rock and Roll with Kid Cudi and Kanye West. Of course, there is a lot of controversy about that song because Kid Cudi and Kanye West are not friends at the moment. There's all kinds of drama going on with Kanye West at the moment. The less said about that, the better. But I really like this song because, as a Brit, I couldn't help but feel the British rap influence in this song. It almost felt like a special crossover episode where The Simpsons meet Family Guy, except for it's UK rap meets American rap, and it made for a lovely blend. And it is sad that Kid Cudi and Kanye West are very unlikely to do another song together, because this song is proof that they work together so well, and Pusha T accompanies them very nicely. Call My Bluff is probably my least favourite song on the album. It's just a little bit too weird for me. I just couldn't really get into the song. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't find the groove. I couldn't find the rhythm. I've listened to it a few times and it just doesn't do anything for me. But that is just me. It may very well work for you. It's just a little bit too offbeat, a little bit too slow, and a little bit too different to everything else the album has said so far. And another personal favourite of mine is the aforementioned Open Air. I love that beat. I love that flow. It's so smooth. It moves so nicely. The lyricism is so clever. It's perfect for driving. It's perfect for the gym. It's perfect for background music. It's a really nicely tuned song that can fit many an occasion. And personally, I think it gets the must-listen treatment as well as Dreaming of the Past. So all in all, I thoroughly enjoyed the album It's Almost Dry. I thought the wordplay was really clever. A lot of the wordplay I actually had to think about. I didn't necessarily get it the first time of asking. Black Rari, white hood, make it a race thing. I honestly just read that as, okay, so he's got a black Ferrari with a white hood racing. And then I thought about the whole white hood race thing, and it was like, oh damn. It's that level of clever wordplay that really impresses me, and it makes me want to listen to the album again and see what else I missed. I think a lot of the features are pretty awesome on this album too. It's not too much, it doesn't overdo it with the features, but there's just the right amount of them, and they're all very good. I thought Jay-Z was the standout by far. But then being an old hip-hop head, I might be biased and just leaning towards what I know. But that doesn't take away the fact that I thought Jay-Z absolutely crushed it on the tracks that he appears on. So my positives ultimately are that I think this is an absolutely banging album with some really killer tracks on it that work in many a different environment. My issues ultimately is that I feel like I walked away with not much. I felt a little bit shortchanged in regard of thought and what it was supposed to evoke from me beyond, this is a really cool album. Because ultimately that's all I really did walk away from it with. But you do also need to know your own taste. If you're not a fan of that gangster shit, if you're not a fan of strong language throughout, if you're not a fan of derogatory language towards women, not that I am, it's just, you know, rap is sort of known for it. They're also known for the N-word being used a lot. If these are problems for you, this isn't going to be the album for you. It's a question you have to ask yourself as a middle-aged white guy. Is it okay for me to listen to this? I certainly don't play it when my mum's in the car, I'll put it that way. So I'm going to give Pusha T, It's Almost Dry, an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching this review. Please be sure to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And please be sure to give us a follow on Instagram. There is a link in the description below. You will be getting access to further content, polls, tournaments, and you even get to choose what I review. And don't forget to hit the comment section. Have you heard Pusha T, It's Almost Dry? What did you think about it? Have you got any other suggestions for what you would like me to review? It doesn't have to be movies. It doesn't have to be music. I am open to suggestions. The floor is yours. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you on the next review.